Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Northern Film Review, where we review and we're Northern. Not necessarily true, but we've got a great show for you today. First of the new season. So we're in season 3 of the Nefusuru. And it's sort of the summer season where we're, vibing a little bit with it. We're not on the radio for the summer, but we'll be back when we do the 4th season in September. So these shows might be a bit longer, might be a bit shorter, because we're not constrained by the timings of the show. So hopefully that'll be interesting to sort of listen to. But we're going to do some sort of couple of special one-off shows, slightly more interesting topics that we might not do on the radio. That might not be radio friendly, I suppose. And vibing with it a bit. I think having a bit of fun over the summer, because I think we, I don't know. We'll get into it about after the stinger. But hope you enjoy.
The Northern Film Review, with your hosts, Oliver Ellis and Luke Simpson.
So, hello, Luke.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm grand. Back home for summer for a bit. Been working a little bit. As you said, vibing.
Vibing, yeah. It's
vibing.
The perfect word for what we're doing at the moment. I think, we had a very... Luke's being arrested at the moment. We haven't... we had a very busy year. And we just sort of... I kind of just collapsed after because basically I finished uni and I was sort of like doing this assignment for like a week, and it was supposed to be in by the Friday, but I had shot myself in the foot by moving home the same week that assignment was due. So I had less time, so I was packing and I was also going home for a day. So I basically got rid of one day of working the assignment, and it also was going to download that weekend. So I missed the Thursday and the Friday to do the work. So I basically just had very little time to do this work, and I got very, very stressed. And I was also working at Download. So I basically went from working really hard on this assignment a week to doing like a bunch of, 10-hour shifts in a row at Download and not getting much sleep and going out after every single one of the shifts, and then being absolutely sort of,
a mess.
And then coming home for a week and then basically just, being just exhausted, and then, and then having to isolate the week after that. Which was terrible.
We love COVID, don't we? We love it.
Yeah, I didn't even have COVID. I just was told to isolate by the NHS for 5 days. But which is, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
But yeah, are you glad you finished your second year, Luke?
Oh, I am indeed. I am. I was knackered, like knackered. The amount of after that filming, after I did all my, because I was editing it as well, which means my job didn't stop when I did the shoot. I had to edit, and oh my god, the last podcast I did, it was a late night one, and I just finished filming.
Yeah. And
legit, for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, I was up to like 4 o'clock editing minute little things and stuff like that. So my job didn't get much easier after that. But and then alongside that we had our pre-dissertation, which we got done, and then also our then we had to do a production journal as well, or a review thing about our filmmaking process, which we did after.
That was the one I was stressed about. yeah, which is exciting. We're yet to get the last grade for our second year out yet, which was of the filmmaking module, which hopefully we'll get soon. Who knows?
Fingers crossed. Delayed though. They delay it all the time, so
Yeah.
we're used to it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think people already getting their third year results back about 2 weeks ago. Is perhaps, I mean, we were supposed to get it the 26th, so in about 2 weeks' time,
Yeah.
we'll get it maybe. And then it'll be like, well, you got a 30 on this, Oliver. You're gonna have to retake the whole year.
Well, you don't have to worry. You've been averaging the first, really, haven't you?
I've not trying to brag here, guys. I have got a first on all of my assignments this year.
Yeah.
Which is, because I'm a true intellectual.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't matter that much, really. It's just sort of if you make good work, I think, which I think is the important thing. But second year done, on to third year, where
Hallelujah.
it'll be
Where it gets even more stressful.
with post-COVID teaching, I suppose, which will be interesting to.
Well, we haven't really gotten much about that yet either, so we don't know if we're actually allowed to go into.
Who knows? We might be in another lockdown by September. Might have the Johnson variant coming out, but who knows? We'll have to see. But apart from that sort of depressingness, we're doing a classic Northern film review this week.
We haven't done one of them in a while, have we?
No. What was the last one we did? It
was just talking about end of year.
The really terrible podcast.
We were all half asleep, sleep deprived,
Yeah.
just need to get this done.
Which came out like a month later.
Yeah, because we were just so just need to decompress.
The podcast that came out before this one we're recording now, we recorded like a month ago, and it just came out like last week.
Because we needed to get it up for the radio, which was why we had it at like 11 o'clock and needs to be up the next day at like 8 in the morning. So we're like, well, here we go.
That was manic. But yeah, I suppose we did do it in the end. But yeah, the last one we did was sort of talking about nonsense, and then the one before that we did the Oscar one, which was really good. I think that's possibly one of the best podcasts we did.
Because it was quite a chill one. We just chilled, looked at the results, and gave our opinions on it. Really.
Yeah, I think that was a good one. And perhaps in the future we'll do more like that. But yeah, I think
I was gonna say quick topic before. I think last night was the Cannes Film Festival as well. So if we talk about festivals and awards and stuff like that.
Maybe that's a good one for next week. Who knows? We haven't thought of the topic for next week yet, but maybe that is the one. Maybe you've just predicted what we're going to do, Luke.
I'm a psychic. What can I say?
Yeah. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. But
we've got a week to decide.
Yeah, we've got a week to decide. Although we'll decide it about like the night before. Whether we do it, I suppose. But yeah, so this week we're doing Annihilation.
Are you Australian there?
Yeah. There's nothing to do with Australia, but yeah, it is a film by Alex Garland, who also wrote Devs, Ex Machina, and 28 Days Later, and
Sunshine.
Bunch of stuff with Frankie Boyle.
Frankie Boyle.
Yeah, okay.
Danny.
There we go. They're both Scottish. I suppose very different personalities. Which is, interesting. He's a good director. I like him. He's British. So, there's that. And
We're not
I
biased, I promise.
no. I quite like Alex Garland because I'm quite into like sci-fi that makes you depressed, and if I was to put it into a genre,
Yeah.
and he sort of does that quite well. And with this film, he does that quite well as well.
As well.
And I think he wrote Devs, and I think he directed it as well, which is sort of one of my favourite TV shows. If you've ever seen that,
I don't think I have, no.
but it's like it's kind of like this film, and it's kind of like Ex Machina. Well, it's kind of like if you haven't seen Devs and you want to see it, I'm going to spoil it a bit.
Go on.
But Devs is like a way of spelling Deus. So it's like Deus Ex Machina. Because he obviously made Ex Machina, and he made this, which is basically called Deus. So there's something there, and it's about like a tech billionaire who wants to predict the future and to see his daughter again. And it's very good. I would recommend it. And Annihilation was in the same sort of string as that, I think. Also, what's that film called where they're sort of like aliens communicating with like squid ink?
Arrival.
Arrival, that's it.
Yeah, Dennis Villeneuve. He's very good as well. I like him.
Yeah, Annihilation is very similar to Arrival as well, if you've ever seen that film. In fact, I think they're quite a bit similar if you sort of compare the vibes.
Minute details and yeah.
Which is all about that. But just give us a little bit of a synopsis, Luke.
Yeah.
On Annihilation.
So a biologist signs up for a dangerous secret expedition into this mysterious zone called the Shimmer, which came from an asteroid, and it hit a lighthouse, and it basically has like this area that is now called the Shimmer because the zone is very shimmery, and the laws of nature doesn't apply in it. And they go in, a group of, I think, 5 females go in as an expedition to find out what happens to like the last missing crew and what happened to her husband.
Okay, yeah. I think, yeah, I suppose that's the plot. Yeah, so Rotten Tomatoes sort of score on this film, not particularly high, from other films that we've reviewed. So Rotten Tomatoes 88 tomato freshness rating, which is all right. 66 audience score, which isn't great.
Nah.
Which, you know, if you've ever seen audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not fantastic. I think there's a lot of problems with the film that I'll probably get into later, but yeah. So the Observer said an exciting, imperfect genre success, which I think is interesting. London Evening Standard says it's certain that the astonishing special effects would have worked better on a larger cinema screen, and it's a shame to lose their impact. But the dialogue is clunky and the plot disjointed, which I think, yeah, that kind of, I agree with some of the points made there. Metacritic, 79 critic score, 7.1 audience score, and some guy, I found this quite funny. He says, great premise, fall short, plot just kind of unravels and doesn't hold together. As mediocre as this is, tons better than Black Panther, which I think
relevance.
I'm not really sure why he needed to add that it's better than Black Panther. Perhaps were they released at the similar times?
2018, I think it came out. I think both came out in 2018, so that might be the correlation.
I mean, I don't know why you sort of like. I mean, they're very different films.
Yeah.
Just, you know. Perhaps in his mind he was like, you know, Annihilation, you know, best Marvel film, which I'm not really sure about that really. But yeah, so I think when I watched the film a long time ago, and my sort of initial thoughts were it's very pretty.
It is.
I think I really love the sort of like the special effects and stuff like that. And having just finished my film, and we have like special effects in it, and to see the sort of like the detail and the work that goes into replicating steam on a pot for like 10 seconds, to see a film like this, and to see like the sort of the really sort of psychedelic alien stuff that they made in this film come to life is just sort of really impressive and sort of beautiful to look at. And I'm just like, wow, this stuff is amazing. I just like I think it really inspired me to like I said before, I like this sort of depressing sci-fi stuff. And I think if I was ever make like a direct film in the future as like a big budget, I think having that sort of stuff in it would work really. And the director of the film, Alex Garland, I think he's quite well known in these sort of like the three sci-fi films, sci-fi genre pieces that he'd done, for having really interesting visuals of sort of like special effects. Like it, and again, if you ever watch Devs, some of the visuals in that are just stunning, like just amazing, and that sort of thing. And he's done that really, really well, and I like that. And it's sort of, you could tell it's sort of an Alex Garland film, I suppose. He's making his name as a director. But yeah,
he's got his forte, hasn't he? Like depressing science fiction with Sunshine, with oh no, he didn't direct it, but wrote it, with Ex Machina, with Annihilation, and I think along with your views, it's very pretty. It's one of the most beautiful alien invasions ever. Along with I don't know if you've seen it, but a film called The Colour Purple.
No.
It's another depressing science fiction film as well. But it's just like it's like that. It's a beautiful alien invasion. Like it's pretty. It's not like big spaceship, big laser beam, explosion. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a nuanced sort of like modernist approach to sci-fi, I think. Because I think a lot of what people I think initially think of the sci-fi genre is like Star Wars,
Star Trek,
and these sort of like these big epics that are have loads of big wars and like,
laser guns
and big explosions and stuff like that. I'm reading Dune at the moment, which
Dennis Villeneuve's directing it.
Yeah,
sorry, that's reminded me.
New film coming out this October, I think. And yeah, this is sort of like these big epics that are all kind of inspired by like Dune, and stuff like that. And the Alex Garland, obviously, with his film going away from that a bit, which I quite like. But I think that perhaps leads on to sort of like, one of my main problems with the film is leaning into the sort of the visuals and the sort of like the epicness and the sort of like the depressing hollowness of it, and like kind of neglecting some of the story elements a bit more, because I think it's kind of like having like a really well written social realist piece, but with sci-fi on top. But they're leaning more. I don't know where I'm going with this point. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not the best written thing in the world. Like I said in one of the critics, who said, but the dialogue is clunky and the plot disjointed. And I think that perhaps holds true a little bit. I think okay.
I was going to say, because he wrote it as well, do you think that the studio might have heavily influenced changes to it to fit a certain criteria? Because when people write film, it changes hands and it changes so many times, and sometimes I think you might know this firsthand when you're writing a film, it gets changed. Do you think that might because he's a brilliant writer? He wrote 28 Days Later, Sunshine,
Yeah.
two really brilliant science fiction / horror films.
Yeah.
Like you can see bits of it in Annihilation, couldn't you? Some parts, but you can. But I get what you mean by. I think like the studio might have said no, get rid of that. People might not understand it or something like that.
Well, I think although that might be true for I think there's sort of like having written for a short film before and having directed a short film before and stuff like that. I think the studio going, this bit doesn't make sense, and trying to round it off around the edges tends to not be. I think it depends on the director. I think, but I think for a studio to allow sort of the plot, some of the plot points of Annihilation to go through, I think there perhaps wasn't as much studio intervention as one might think. But I also think because he was a director on the Annihilation as well, like the majority of this film is him. I think because I think when you're a writer on the film. You constantly get annoyed by how the director has interpreted your work, which I have found in my own film of me going, well, that's not what I meant. That's not what you've obviously misinterpreted what I was trying to say there. And that comes as a sort of idea of it. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's perhaps clunky in parts. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
I think I do agree, clunky in parts, but I still think it's a wonderful story. I think meanings behind it and stuff like that is it's quite touching at some points as well. But like I like the film for it's always made because of the look. The cinematography, the effects. I know the story's important, but I think the way it looks is amazing, and it's what attracted me to the film basically, because it's such a beauty of a film, and I just really enjoyed it in that sense. But then I do agree with you. At some points there are plot holes or there are some clunky writing in there.
Yeah, and I just, as much as I do like this film and I like the idea of it, I just think, I don't know.
Do you think it's better or worse than Ex Machina then?
Worse.
Worse.
I think Ex Machina was such a revolutionary film of its time, I think, because it's so sort of like stripped back, and it's sort of like the theme and the concepts of it are sort of like very easily understood, I think. Whereas I think Annihilation, they're perhaps a bit more abstract. And I think, I feel like Ex Machina could be used as like, an example of like a philosophical idea, whereas Annihilation perhaps couldn't be as much, because like if you're in a conversation with someone and be like, well, it's kind of like Ex Machina, people would understand what you mean, right? It's kind of like it's become sort of a terminology of what it wants, and I think that's perhaps what it wanted to achieve, and that's perhaps its success as a film is that it's sort of like become this sort of like thing, and I think I don't know, I think perhaps they're very similar films, and I think it's a bit unfair comparing the two. But Ex Machina is better.
Yeah.
Why do you think?
No. I just because it's the same director. He wrote and directed both films, and I just don't understand how one can be as game changing as Ex Machina, and then like his next film, you think, oh, it's going to be much better. He's grown. He's had his directorial debut, and he's going to only improve from that. And then it goes into Annihilation, which is, don't get me wrong, a brilliant film. I love it, but it's underwhelming compared to Ex Machina.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I suppose that's kind of like comes into discussion of like, you know, writing your magnum opus, but like carrying on from that. You know, how do you know when you've sort of reached your peak of your career, which is a bit sad to think about, really. You know, and I constantly think about this with like directors like Tarantino and Spielberg, who I think probably have reached their peak of their career quite a while ago, and you know, how do they sort of like, do they have to keep chasing the sort of like making the better film, or shall they, like, you know, just quit or go on to different things? And I just think, you know, it's interesting to think about, really, because like, is this the sort of like Alex Garland's sort of thought process on these films? Is he constantly trying to, like, you know, make the next Ex Machina, or is he, you know, I don't know. It perhaps makes me think about my own career of like, am I at the peak now, or, you know, am I going to reach the peak later on? But
Yeah, you peak at the Northern Film School.
I don't know. I might do. My Fox Club film, that might be the peak of my career. You know, woman kills man with egg. It's it is what it is. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I want to talk about the actual expedition and the reason and of the film. So the expedition, the majority of the people, I think, most people who go into the Shimmer never return from the Shimmer.
Yeah.
Due to
it's so cold.
Due to the harsh nature of the actual Shimmer, with the mutated animals and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And the reason, basically, people sacrificing themselves to science to go into into Shimmer and do the research, and it's basically suicide. And I know it's a touchy subject, but this group of women who go in all have destructive nature to it, as what Chris Stuckman said. I watched a couple of his reviews, and he said they all have a destructive nature. One was a former junkie who is sober. One cuts himself not to feel hurt, but to feel not to hurt herself, but to feel something. One is affected by the death of a daughter due to leukemia. One has cancer, who is dying who will die in the next 6 months. And then the final one, the main character, is guilty because she had an affair on her husband, which led him to go into the Shimmer, and it all kind of basically suicide but not suicide at the same time. And it's like they have nothing to live for, so they'll do it instead of sending someone who has something to live for to go into the Shimmer, if you know what I mean. Which I found quite, you know, not emotional, but quite hard and quite a touchy subject that they touched on.
Yeah.
Which I thought they did quite well. But yeah, I think the self-destructive nature of the people going into the Shimmer and to this, I wouldn't say purgatory or anything like that, but like to this place that they know they're not going to come back from.
Yeah.
Is quite something.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's kind of like I don't know. I think what comes to mind is like a war metaphor of like men going to battle and knowing they'll never come back, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I suppose it succeeds on that sort of point, I think. And we sort of is it Natalie Portman?
Yes, it is.
who
Yes,
sort
yes.
of is the protagonist of the film, kind of like helps bridge that theme. Do you think this is a good film for Natalie Portman?
I think it's a kind of, yeah. I think it is. I think uh, it's weird because recently she's been kind of playing the same roles and stuff like that going to more kind of sciencey fictiony actiony type roles compared to her older I mean younger rom-com days, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I think that I'll think a different type of conversation. I think people are trying to not keep themselves into one genre. Like you back in the day in the 70s, 80s, like people would just stick with one main genre.
Yeah.
Really, either you're an action star, or you're a romantic comedy star, or you're a thriller star, or horror movie actor, if you know what I mean. And now people don't want to be stuck in one genre. They want to kind of separate themselves. So I think that Portman wanted to kind of get rid of her rom-com romantic days, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think it was an all right film for her. I think she's a relatively good actress, and I think I'm looking at the other films that she's like been in, and I think she was in Star Wars, and she's in Avengers films, although the Avengers films, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it kind of like the same roles in them too, though, if you know what I mean. Like, she's kind of like the love interest.
Yeah.
Weak, not weaker, but like kind of weaker person in that sense. She's the queen, or is it princess? She's a princess in Star Wars, and then in Thor, she's this scientist who's the love interest to Thor.
Yeah, I suppose it's nice for her to be like this, strong female protagonist. So we're talking about Natalie Portman and that sort of thing. I think what I like to think about these sort of I like having like actors who will often be sort of like pigeonholed as this one like type of genre actor.
Yeah.
And then go into something else and have like that really sort of like jarring, like.
I'll tell you what a good one that comes to my mind is Arnold Schwarzenegger in Twins and in Kindergarten Cop. He's always been he's this big burly Austrian dude who's always in action films and Commando and Terminator and stuff like that. And then he becomes a cop. It's still an action film, but it becomes a kindergarten teacher, which is a complete expectation subversion. Which is, and then Twins is a full on comedy, which you would not expect Arnold to be in. So that's what one like comes to my mind.
Yeah, and I think Uncut Gems is
Adam Sandler.
Yeah, which is really, it works so well as sort of like because I think that's what the Safdie brothers do, sort of have these really unusual castings in their films.
Yeah.
Which I think is same thing really, but I think perhaps Natalie Portman worked all right in this film, I think. And I think and again, Uncut Gems is another Netflix film, and that sort of thing. And it's I don't know, it's sort of Netflix film. I don't know. I think all Netflix films are sort of, a bit weird, in a good way. I think.
Yeah, I think they're good for either breakout stars or like you mean with Adam Sandler, like someone trying to get out that mold. I think, and it's also the kind of some Netflix originals are kind of indie films. And like say Robert Pattinson is gone out of his mold by doing some of these Netflix originals or Shudder originals or something like that to go into these indie films and try and reinvent himself. And I'm not saying that's what Natalie Portman has done in Annihilation, but she's a lead, which she, in some of the films that spring to my mind, she wasn't really a lead, was she? So I think that's good. For more females that want to become a lead in the film.
Yeah. I thought you were doing like a promo then. For more females that want to be in film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to my film.
Which is, yeah, I don't know. It's a good film, I think, Annihilation. I think if you had to give it a score,
I will go for a 7 to 7.5.
Ooh. I would go 6. You know, which I think
It's not as bad as Signs.
yeah, it's not as bad as Signs. I can't remember what we gave that. I think it was like
I think we just laughed it off.
yeah. Yeah, you know, 6 isn't like terrible.
No.
I think. You know, I think anything after 5 is
mediocre to all good. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think. But you know, it I think what sort of stands out of the film is the sort of the visuals. I really like the visuals, and I think perhaps the story wasn't there as much. And I don't know, maybe I should give it a higher score, but I don't know. I perhaps didn't lead to it. And I think perhaps a big fan of the sort of the sci-fi genre and the depressing sci-fi genre. I perhaps have a lot to compare it to. And I think, you know, if I was, you know, if someone was interested in getting into like sci-fi films or more depressing sort of like, you know, big thought films, maybe I would recommend Annihilation to someone. But I also think, you know, stuff like Ex Machina or Arrival, yeah, would be better recommended than Annihilation, because they're just better films, and I think they're easier to sort of understand, and the concepts in them are sort of smaller, and sort of more tangible to, you know, audiences. So, you know, and I think that's perhaps where it falls short, is sort of the simplicity of the sort of the larger ideas that it wants to sort of you know, get towards. But you know, it has its merits, obviously, like I said.
It has a banging soundtrack to it, though.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of very I was gonna say this, but very science fictiony. It has like do like not sympathy, but like quite a lot of science. I've noticed a lot of science fiction soundtracks have really use a lot of trumpets and trombones or tubas, quite brassy instruments in their thing, which are heavily altered in post. But like they use, the basically they use a lot of trumpets and trombones for, I don't know why, but it just sounds very alieny.
Yeah.
Which I quite like. Alieny. With a lot of effects on top of it, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it has its merits, you know. But yeah, I think that's all we could probably say about it, really. I think it was a good film, but
Could be better.
Could be better, and you know, but that doesn't mean it's a terrible film. I think I like Alex Garland, perhaps one of my favourite directors, because I liked Devs and Ex Machina so much, and perhaps that's maybe why I'm comparing it, you know, so openly to
previous things you've seen by him.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, you know, it could be better, but it is what it is, I suppose. Anyway, so hopefully you enjoyed this week's show on Annihilation. Hopefully you feel annihilated. I'm not really sure what that means.
Very drunk.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. So yeah, I've been Oliver.
I've been Luke.
And yeah, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.